Hey all, Joe here with All Funnies and Games, and today I think I've finally figured out the setup to do something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've done some art stuff on this channel before, and I've done some RPG stuff on this channel before, and finally, I think I've got my setup figured out right to do some minis painting. So, you might recognize the outfit on this one a little bit, tank top, kind of baggy, utility-ish pants. This is the character for my Starfinder campaign. I ended up going with the Solarian Ace Pilot Human, and this model is almost exactly what I wanted from that. Only real thing that I'm going to have to modify is removing this gun. And this is something I've almost never done before, so you might just be watching me hack apart a model to no useful end. But, got this brand new knife. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, I'm nervous. I'm not used to just cutting into a model first thing. Okay. That's slicing through pretty okay. Oh, first cut. Clipped off part of that gun there. Okay. Okay, you might notice on my thumb there, I've been learning to whittle. Just shave out this gun. This feels so weird. I bought this thing and now I'm just cutting it apart. Oh, it's coming. That's a lot less gun than there used to be. Whew, okay. Alright, it's detached from the hand. Now detach it from the hair side. Oh, this is tricky. This is delicate. Yeah, I think it is going to work to have the hand just kind of up like that. Hopefully I can kind of shave things away to make it look a little bit like a Solarian fist. I actually went with Solarian fists. Just because I always think fist weapons are super cool. Yang from Ruby, Garnet from Steven Universe, even just the Gauntlet of the Hero in Adventure Time are all just really cool weapons because you don't see combat gauntlets near enough in fiction, in my opinion, for my taste. This knife is not the only thing from those bespoke posts that's going to be helpful. I have a used razor blade that might help some as well. Oh, is it coming off? Whew, it's coming. This is still pretty nerve-wracking. This is not how I'm used to interacting with the things that I've bought. Usually I treat the things I buy a little bit better than this, but this one needed some tweaking. Oh, almost there. Alrighty. That's looking just about right. We'll just kind of score this a little bit. Oh, and that's perfect. That's probably going to be way too fine to see, but the handle of the gun now looks like the thumb, so I could clip her thumb off and have something that's vaguely thumb-shaped to replace it. Or this, where the lines between the knuckles go. So now, the model looks like my character, fist in the air, ready to fight. So the first thing I like to do is I'll just take a really basic black. Some people use a specific stuff for a base coat that's a little bit thinner. A friend of mine who mostly taught me how to do this kind of stuff taught me that you can save some money and get pretty much as good results just from kind of watering down your standard paints, and that you can kind of get more of a gritty and tough look by doing your base coat in black instead of in a lighter color. So this is going to be interesting because she is very pale skinned the way I drew her, and if I can figure out editing well enough, I will probably bring up the picture that I originally drew. And once this is on, I'm going to let it dry. I might end up giving the base layer another coat. So I'm trying to remember if in the original drawing I had given her a staff or not. I know that in my early drafts before I drew her for the video, I envisioned her with a staff, but then I just realized, oh hey, Solarian weapons can manifest as fists. Perfect, done. So we're going to give that some time to dry. And actually looking at the black on black, let's do something while that dries. Luckily, I keep most of a stack of index cards by my desk. And I didn't know it was for just such an occasion, but fortuitously, I think this was for just such an occasion. And necessity has had another child. Okay, so I think that's about dry. Only real way I know is you can probably tell there's a lot of paint on some of my fingers, but find a finger that doesn't have paint on it, kind of tap whatever you painted last, and still clean. So I think we're good to go on the next step of this. I'm gonna start with some orange. Orange on here. Okay, this is thickened up some in storage. This is almost the consistency of like those powdered cheese packs that come with the macaroni and cheese. Hopefully the paint is still good. So yeah, this is definitely going to take a few layers to go on over the black that we've done, but that is going to give it that tough, gritty look that we wanted. This is a little bit yellowy, but I think that'll be okay. So we're going to do like a gray wash to give some shadowing. That'll be one of our last steps. And that should bring this brightness down quite a bit. And a good way to do it, this first layer of orange can have some time to dry while we move on to something else. Another thing we're going to need is some white. That's going to be a white tank top. So we'll take a little of that. Way too much of that. Should not have been looking at the screen while I was squeezing out the paint. That's just a waste. Okay. Alrighty, pay no attention to the horrible mess just off camera. Okay, we'll do across there. Okay. It has been a while since I've painted. It's going to take a little bit for me to get back on top of doing it as well as I used to. But for first pass, I'm pretty happy with this. The white is going on nice and thick actually, a lot better than that orange. It's concealing the base layer much, much better. Okay, so what I'm thinking is I'm going to do these gloves in gold to do my best to make them look like Solarian energy weapons. If you haven't played Starfinder, Solarians kind of have this thing as a class feature where they can just create weapons or armor out of solar energy. So we're going to take this flesh color. These are old paints. I don't think they call Caucasian skin color, whoa, that's oily. I don't think they call Caucasian skin color flesh anymore. But these are some pretty old paints. So we're going to mix this with a little bit of the white to just get our person here very pale. Again, referencing that original picture I did, she is very pale ginger. Okay, I think that's our skin tone for her. Okay, she is definitely coming together a bit now. One thing that's going to be a little bit different going from that to the model is the model is going to have quite a bit shorter hair. So I'm going to mix some brown with the orange that we did her pants with. And these are just craft store acrylic paints. You can buy specific modeling paints. You don't really need to get doing some of this stuff. You can, if you want, just buy some very simple paints. Some pretty cheap paints compared to what you get at a hobby store. You can make that work on a much better budget than some modelers are going to be spending on their stuff. Now, you're probably going to get a little bit better coverage, a little bit better color consistency from the fancier paints. You know, you get what you pay for, but if you're just starting out and you haven't done something like this before, you know, there's a idea that you can overbuy your tools and you can spend money on tools that give you a greater level of control than you have the skill to make full use of. And there's really not a reason to do that. You know, you're kind of just throwing money away if you're going to use up the good supplies to learn on. Alright, and we're going to use that all the way cleaned off. Okay. We'll get some of this gold for those fists. And we might even do a gold wash around the fists to try and give off the impression of light reflecting. See how that looks. There we go. That's looking pretty good. We'll do the same with the other fist, and then we'll get some brown for that belt there. And this should keep the whole palette of this piece in kind of that gold, yellow, and orange family. Kind of a cohesion to the whole thing. This has been a pretty fun campaign. The one we're doing with the one I'm doing with this mini. Sadly, I can't be to it all the time just because of work, but it's been a really fun campaign. The story is really neat. It's like trying to track down drug traffickers as some new branch of law enforcement that nobody trusts and that the rest of the police force doesn't help much. Having to prove ourselves to get the support of the other authorities. Makes for kind of a fun story. Really the biggest complaint is that we got so used to 5e that Starfinder just feels complicated in a lot of ways. Let's see, how am I going to get that brown? So I'm realizing the brown that I have is a metallic. We'll mix that with the... Should I just say peach? That's an okay brown. That's passable. It's going to be kind of a creamy tanned leather, I guess. But that takes out the metallic-iness of it, which was what I wanted. So we'll get this belt and the pouches on it. And then I have a flat gray that I'm going to do buckles. And I'll do the buckles on the belt and the buckles on the shoes with that. So in the older video, I never actually got around to naming this character then. So her name is Valki. Basically just the first part of Valkyrie. An odd name, but for a sci-fi setting it does kind of fit. She's kind of an ace pilot, street tough, who is basically on commuted sentence for helping out with the authorities on this case. Which does kind of make her a fun character to play. Is working for the cops, but kind of coerced to do so. Okay, let's get these pants repainted. I'm going to wait to redo the boots and get that edge very clean and sharp until I'm happy with where these pants are. Yeah, that second layer is going a long ways, but I might still need a third. This is doing a lot to clean up the look, cover up some of that black undercoat. It's coming along. Alright, let's redo the shirt. I'll have to be careful with this because we'll redo the arms and face first. Make sure those are exactly where I want them to be. And that way, the shirt will kind of look like it's over them, like it's supposed to. That's one thing I had to learn the hard way is you can't just put them on in the order that's easy, because the paint does have a little bit of space to it. It takes up some space, so the paint that goes on in the final layer is going to look like it's above the paint that went on before it. I'm sure there's a technique to get around that, I just don't know it. If you like this model, by the way, it's called Rosie Chronomancer. It's from the Chronoscape line by Reaper, which is also part of the Bones line, which is their very cheap models. Might be hard to tell on this camera, but this isn't a highly detailed model. But for tabletop purposes and for just the enjoyment of sitting down and painting a model, it will do the trick for a very, very reasonable price point, which I like. As you can see, she's really starting to look like herself now. Definitely got that toughness in the pose. I liked the hero pose that they had for this character from their own set. We'll give that just a minute to dry, and then we'll start in on second layer for the shirt, the hair, the gloves, the belt. Alright, we gave that a minute. I think we're ready to revisit this tank top. Cover up all the black. Yeah, and this is looking good. This might not need a third coat on the shirt. Maybe here at the shoulder blades. There's still a lot of our base layer showing through there at the shoulders, but we'll see. We will do the hair next. And I'm actually really liking how this hair is coming out, because that little bit of metallic, it might not be showing up on the camera super well, but that little bit of metallic is really helping, I think, to give a sheen to this. And one thing we're going to do, a lot of people don't do this, but the person who taught me how to paint always liked to make sure he got the eyes in. And I am nothing if not an okay student. So, eyes are very hard. Look at that tiny teensy dollop of paint there. You need basically nothing. And basically, you want to paint the eye socket, and then we're going to come back over it once that's dry with the flesh to paint in the eyebrow. That's what's going to give that good eyes look, because right now it's kind of bug-eyed, but you come in afterwards once that's dry and just make sure there's like a brow line over it, and that brow line looks like it's over it, and that's going to help a lot. So we'll get a little more of this gold and do a second coat on these gloves. Okay, yeah, those are probably going to be okay after coat number 2. These are looking good. They do kind of just look like golden armor, but that's one point where I'm just going to be okay with knowing I'm not quite there yet to somehow paint a model so that it looks insubstantial and ethereal. Those are big words, and it makes me think that that's an advanced technique. Okay, we'll do another pass on this belt. And then I think these pants are going to be dry so that we can do another crack at them. See, that was the belt color. Hopefully third layer on the pants is going to finish them off. We will have to see though. So once these pants are done, I can do another layer of the black on the boots. So I want to get that just probably last thing. I think that's going to be fairly easy to touch up and get right. Yes, that's looking like that bright kind of jumpsuit orange I really wanted for this character. Perfect. And I don't think it's going to have to be absolutely seamless here. A lot of those imperfections are going to get covered up by the gray wash I'm going to do, which is going to give it some shading and give it kind of a dirtied look. I think those eyes are dry. I think we're ready to fix this. There we go. That makes the eyes a lot more subtle, a lot more real looking. I usually don't try and get the whites and the irises and the pupils. I just do the whole thing in the iris color because it gives the impression without just making it really so intricate that it's almost not even worth it at a certain point. Get her mouth in. We'll do that in brown. I don't really see her as being heavily made up. And that is definitely just on her nose. Well, we'll just get her neck shaded a little bit. And actually, this color I used for the pouch is going to work really well for some of the shading. The logic of this is if she were like full-sized, like person-sized, these shadows would be a lot darker. I don't know how or why that's how it works, but going in yourself and adding shading rather than just letting the fact that it's a 3D object shade itself actually does go a long way towards making these look a lot better. Let's get these boots redone. Just gotta make sure we cover up anywhere we splashed another color onto these boots so that they're just solid black boots. There we go. You just want to go up to the edge that this model was nice enough to give us. There's a very clean lip where the pants end and the boots begin. They were nice enough to give us that convenient guideline. I think it's the least we can do to make use of it. Okay. So, there she is. I'll actually get a little of that hair brown mixed in with some of the gold so we can shade. Actually, no, those gauntlets are supposed to be made of light. We're not shading those. This gray is gonna be sort of meant to look like a dull metal. We don't want the metallic colors, we want like a flat gray. Might even end up looking a little bit like stone, but hopefully the context of having it on the buckles will convey that it's more of a iron. Let's take some of this. We want very little of this gray. Okay, and those little touches, having like the steel toe showing as exposed steel, having the boot bindings in gray, having those little touches on the belt in gray, I think are going to do a lot to give this a little bit more depth of appearance. So now we can move on to that wash. And what that's going to mean, I'll actually bring this front and center here while we do this. So I've got my gray right in this compartment here, and I just want to get a lot of water in with it. I'm nervous about this step. This is one of those steps that's very easy to mess up, but okay, yeah, that's going on well. And just kind of spread it around until it's coating, but not covering the whole thing. Get it on, smear it back off. Ooh, and something on there was not dry because that is getting a lot of the gold smeared around. I might have messed this up. Oh, the orange wasn't quite dry. Getting an orange tint to this whole thing, which is unfortunate. Kind of dig that out. We might have to repaint some of this. I might have screwed that up jumping in before it was all dry and ready to go. Sorry, I keep lifting her out of frame to try and get this done. Alright, that kind of put an orange tint on her that is unfortunate. That's very much not what I wanted to do. Okay, that's better. Alright. So I think we did give it a little bit of depth with that. I'm going to let that gray layer dry just a little bit, and we'll be good to go with a little bit more. Okay, so I think this is close to dry. So at this point I'm going to do some touch-up work. Just try and make sure if there's anywhere where paint kind of chipped off. You can maybe see there's a little bit on the back of her head there. Yeah, that's probably not going to show up, but it's there. Just touch up across there. And yeah. So I was thinking I would do a dry brush for highlights, but I don't honestly think it needs it. I think this model's about there. Definitely going to stand out at the table. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this. Maybe you learned something about technique, or maybe you realized there's a thing you can do that you didn't know about before. Whatever you got out of this, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. If you learned nothing else today, let your paint dry. Don't make the same mistakes I made.